Hello, guys. Good evening. Come on in, coming on. Very, very important show for you tonight. Panorama education has been in the news, as has social emotional learning. I know we've been talking a lot about this, for a very long time, actually. Come in, come in. So Nancy will be joining us tonight, along with Michelle Morrow. Nancy is a doctor, actually a surgeon, and Michelle is a nurse. So we're going to have a little bit of the medical side of this tonight. Come on in, come on in. Welcome, welcome. Let's go, let's go. So what you're looking at today is a tweet that I put up, and it is, why is our government, through Panorama Education Surveys, monitoring our children, how well they regulate their emotions, how supportive their relationships are? What business of that is the state government? What business is that of, the federal government, for that matter? Because as we've learned, that's who's supporting this nonsense. Certainly, we have learned a lot in the last 10 days about Merrick Garland's son, big time conflict of interest. His son is the co-founder, actually, of Panorama Education. So here is a letter. What you're seeing right now is, here's a letter that we sent to representatives here in North Carolina. We sent this on June 1st. This is a letter that was signed by 2,800 of you guys. That was our first petition to stop Panorama, to defund it. We, the undersigned, vigorously oppose the North Carolina Department of Instruction's Panorama Surveys statewide pilot. It's a $3 million pilot. I'm getting ready to show you the receipts. Again, we had 28 signatures then. We have now 4,700. We're going to keep that going. We must defund Panorama in this state. And it goes on that Castle SEL and Panorama have partnered together. We talked about that a lot. So for those of you that you're like, what is Panorama? I've heard it's bad. I don't really have the, my own eyes on it. What is it? Well, they are surveys that go into grades 3 and up, that survey things that have nothing whatsoever to do with academics. Here's one. So I'm going to show you a lot of examples. And again, this is not, we all like our teachers, right? Well, most of us like our teachers. And so you're thinking, well, I don't mind if my school knows something about my kids, or my teacher, they're not going to do anything nefarious. It's not about that. It's about the government knowing what your kids feel today, for instance. What emotion are you feeling the most today? Big deal. So what? Who cares about this? Why the government needs to know. But there are a couple of questions in here that are very nefarious, to say the least. Why is the government asking your child how often they felt loved? How often they felt safe? Now, I know that if we all feel this way. If you can catch child abuse or neglect, you ought to be able to do that. But a universal screening, at least one time a year, a lot of times even 2 and 3 times, not appropriate. Here's another one. Here's another example of a Panorama survey. And again, don't think of this as, oh, my teacher or my school's doing it. I want you to think of it as the government is doing it. Here's a question. Would you like to talk privately with an adult from school about how you're feeling or something on your mind? Okay, so again, that is the government asking if your child would like to talk to anyone but you. Again, wholly inappropriate for the government. And I keep saying that. You have to keep saying that. You have to remember that it's not a school or a particular time. It is the government reaching into your relationship with your child. It is absolutely beyond inappropriate here. So I want to show you another thing that we all need to know about. We've been hearing about how much Virginia in particular has gotten for their partnership with Panorama. Here in North Carolina, we're the head of the Hydra. Panorama had its first pilot in North Carolina in 2012. So again, it was piloted here. And it's been, pretty much done ever since. And we're spending buku bucks. Districts are spending a lot of money on Panorama, but check out how much our state in particular is spending. And of course, look at the budget line item there. It's called safety, right? Who could object to safety? And so in the name of safety, they deem it appropriate to spend $3 million in the state of North Carolina to keep your child safe, right? All in the name of safety. Here's another one, Youth Risk Behavior Survey. We've been talking about this for a while. This is a survey that asks 10-year-olds what age they had sex, how many sexual partners they've ever had, how do they like their heroin, I'm paraphrasing, of course, and how quickly can they load a gun. These are 10 and 11-year-olds. So this is another thing that they budgeted $250,000 of taxpayer money for. But of course, that's a federal survey. So this is the amount of money that Panorama that we spent here. As soon as we started talking about Panorama, and I'm going to bring Nancy in right now. She's backstage. She's not partying too hard. Nancy, you're not partying. Okay. You're ready to go on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You look like you're partying. Michelle, you're not partying either. So we just got back from partying, right?
Yeah.
We've had quite enough. So I was just talking about how much our state is spending, et cetera. And in 1 second, I'm going to go over the SEL roadmap. Yeah, Jay, $3 million. In North Carolina, again, the head of the Hydra, we are spending buku bucks for Panorama. In fact, this is one of the strongest areas for Panorama. Both of you guys know, both of you witnessed this. We've all gone through this. Hello, Diane. We've all gone through this. I'll never will forget. Nancy, you and I are working our butts off Memorial Day weekend, getting all these things from the school board, breaking this news that we're going to spend buku bucks on this survey. We report it. We get this into the public, and what happens? The whole bookcase falls on us, and we are called everything from scam artists to liars to whatever by the DPI for reporting about Panorama surveys. And do either one of you believe that I hate to say I told you so?
No.
I love saying I do love me some I told you so. So before we get into it, there's one more thing that I want to show. Okay, talk amongst yourselves till I can find it.
Well, I think the thing that we also need to look at is how much money is being spent even on the laptops and on all of this 5G and on all of the change in the curriculum, the trainings for the teachers, everything that has come about as a result of this, because that's also money that has been wasted because they're rewriting all of the curriculums in order to, comply with the Office of Equity Affairs or to comply with CRT or to comply with SEL or to comply with what they're finding on the Panorama surveys. And if we look at that, it's going to be so far beyond $3 million. And yet we have the teachers that aren't being paid enough, and we have them that they're buying their own supplies for the stinking classrooms. Well, and when we look at all of the people in the DPI and everybody that is, I know the superintendent of schools here in Wake County makes almost $300,000 a year. So let's just look at all of that on top of the money that they're just giving to Panorama. How about the $1.5 million that was taken from the federal government to put into the Office of Equity Affairs that now they're wanting to make into, medical clinics and telemedicine in the schools.
Right.
I don't know. Did you guys know that there is, I know this is a little off topic. Did you know that there is a billboard that I just saw yesterday driving back from Georgia right before you come to Rowan County? And it's a billboard that says, "Coming soon, telemedicine to a school near you." And it's a picture of a little girl, looks like she's about 8 or 9 years old. Yes, with a computer in front of her. And on the computer is a picture of a guy that looks like he's in a lab coat with a stethoscope around his neck.
No, not a good idea. Terrible idea. Didn't know that. Didn't want to get mad tonight. Trying to control my temper.
Sorry.
I'm on a new plan. It's already not working. Just kind of like the diet I'm on, not working, already blown it. So I want to show you, I've been talking about this. I want to offer you evidence that we are the tip of the head of the Hydra. But for my Fairfax babes and for my people all over, this is 2020, a document put out by Castle SEL. You're going to see Panorama. You're going to see the real deal. Check out who their early partners were. Of course, Chan Zuckerberg, the freaking teachers union. Okay. See anybody in there? How about North Carolina Public Instruction?
Whoa. This is on the SEL website?
Pardon me?
This is on the SEL website?
Oh, yeah. This is Castle. We are Castle here.
Okay.
Yeah. I see Tulsa. I see Maine. right? And I see North Carolina. I see Indiana. All right. So if you're in any of these areas, these are okay, your forerunners. These are the vanguards right here. We are here. I keep telling you guys, the most progressive state school system in the country is North Carolina. We are the most far gone. And again, I keep telling you, it's both parties, right? Republicans have been in charge for a long time here. Again, it isn't left or right, it's right or wrong, and it's all about them dollars, right? So, this is talking about the reopening, blah, blah, blah. But I want to show you guys, this is the castle, etc. For those of you who do not believe that critical race theory is coming in through SEL, I'm just going to tell you, anti-racist, that means critical race theory right there. That's the priority. Okay, so that is absolutely in this. So is gender, right? So gender's a big part of it. I want to blow this up to see if you can see this a little better. Do you see this? Okay, we use this term anti-racist, blah, blah, blah. We did not see Nebraska, Jay. Yeah, so and equity focused. Sexual orientation. Why does that belong in school? Family background. Why does that belong in school? Family income. Why does this does not belong in school, period, point blank. But Panorama is a big part of this, you guys. Let's see what that is. But in this roadmap, I mean, Panorama is very critical, which, okay, so got to do these surveys, right? This is a getting to know you survey. I'm sorry, this has nothing to do with academics, everything to do with crime, and it is a huge overreach from the government. Nancy, what do you think? Nancy, are you with us?
Well, it's almost if you don't see it for yourself, you wouldn't believe it, but it's here and it's already happening. I'm convinced that we're basically somewhere in between a bunch of communists running the bureaucracy and a fascist type of government high-tech collusion coming down on everyday people. And it's really sad to watch. And it's sad that we have elected people who aren't exposing it and who are going along with it. There was, I'm sorry, I'm a little not focused because we came from this board meeting where we saw parents who are reasonable, who have kids being kicked out, don't have a say, very concerned about academics for every kid, not just their own kid, but every kid, which is what I'm concerned about. We have a very strong lieutenant governor trying his best to get this stuff in the media, with a media who ignores it and who makes fun of him. I'm not like the praying type, but at this point, I pray for the strong people like the lieutenant governor, like these parents showing up at school board meetings, trying to get the attention. And we're essentially in a communist system, and these surveys prove it, because there's no need for data collection on these kids to go right to the federal government. And I listened to the state board meeting last week, and ProjectAware, which is in charge of the federal grant money that are going to these telehealth projects, presented. And so they had the first 5 years is ending soon. It was like $9 million, $8 million for 3 counties, which is Beaufort, Cleveland, and Rockingham. So they piloted this telehealth stuff along with, healthcare and surveys in school and setting up mental health plans. They're getting an additional $8.9 million over the next 5 years to add 3 more counties. One is Nash. I can't remember the other 2.
So let's back up. I want to back up for 1 second. That's okay. So we're talking about ProjectAware, and that I want to just show you. I want to tell you that we're kind of skipping ahead.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's all right. Look, these surveys, you need to understand this, people. Let me share my screen again. These surveys, they're not just mere data collection. They're there for a reason. And I'm about to tell you what that reason is right now. They're there to diagnose your child with a disorder. So when Nancy just said ProjectAware, what she was saying is that's what you're saying, right? You're saying the mental health clinics that they are putting into every single school. I wish I
They
could
are specifically training teachers to become universal screeners.
Yes.
So there's a tier 1, 2, 3 system, and every kid is subjected to it. And the teachers think that they're therapists, and they fill out these surveys. Many of these surveys mention anti-racism, or culturally relevant, blah blah blah, and are based in, have CRT framework elements. And these teachers are going to go around. Some of them are going to think that they're therapists, and they're going to be required to do this universal screening on every kid and have to find a certain amount of kids, because if they don't find enough, they have to rescreen to move into tier 2 is identified as, might need referral to treat. And this is all combined with the telehealth. So you can see that this is a very dangerous slippery slope with people who already can't teach. We already have devastating numbers, bureaucracies that aren't answering to the people, in fact, kicking people out for trying to bring up rational statements, calling reasonable people white supremacists if you're not an active activist for their side. Now they're going to be screening your kid, and if they don't say the right thing, tier 2, baby, anti-racist interventions.
Right. Well, so I want to go back to something, and first of all, what you're pointing out, I want to make this very kind of concise for everybody. That when you're taking a survey and you don't have a behavior that tricks it off. In other words, if I say I'm going to give a survey to everyone that has a grade point average of 2, I'm going to give a survey for everyone who sleeps in class or does whatever. That is that's an external observation, and then that triggers a survey, right? What they're doing is universal surveys. That means anyone and everyone gets that emotional survey. What they are doing, the beginning point is to examine the contents of your mind, the contents, your conscience, your very basic essence of who you are. So we know if the beginning quality is the contents of your mind and not a behavior, the ending isn't. You cannot say, oh, I'm not going to have a behavioral change, right? They're not going for behavior change. They're going for the contents of your mind. They will do it with SEL, that would mean the curriculum, or they'll do it with medication. This is a fact. This is an absolute fact. We're going to be reporting on this very soon. What you're talking about is the absolute fact, because look, behavior modification, Michelle, you know this. It means, all right, I eat too much, right? And I know a trigger for me is when I watch a particular show, right? And I eat. So it means the behavior precipitates an intervention. This doesn't have the behavior. You don't need to have the behavior. It's just that you show up in that class, Michelle.
Well, I think what they're actually looking for is the behavior that is nonconformity. And I think that is what is even more startling and should make us all recognize that they do have a plan for what behavior they're going to target. And it is going to be those people who refuse to either answer the survey, as we saw in the DPI and on their own website, saying either you as the teacher, when you give this survey, if they refuse to answer it, or if you're concerned about how they answer it. It's not saying if you are concerned that, that they seem more forlorn, or they used to be doing well in school and they're no longer performing, or they're coming and, they seem to be hungry, or they're like you said, falling asleep in class. It's nothing that is something that would trigger you to think, okay, something has changed in this child. And so we need to make sure that there's not something happening at home, or there's not, a medical issue. This is all, and they're telling them, basically, don't tell your parents that you're taking this.
Exactly.
And they're doing that because they're wanting to pull them away from the children so that they can see, can we get rid of this moral compass that their parents have put in them? And if not, we're going to drug you to the point that you will do as we say.
Yeah, absolutely. This is real, you guys. I mean, this is not hyperbole. I want you to know that we have a surgeon and a nurse and a psychology expert on this program. We have looked at, we can confirm the data. Where do we get 90% of the data?
From the
websites themselves.
From the DPI websites. Thank you.
And the board meeting.
Which,
right.
by the way, which according to our state superintendent, we're supposed to stop looking at.
Right.
Which because if you don't like what's on the website, don't look at it.
Right. Well, I listened to last week's board meeting, and like I said, ProjectAware presented, and right before they presented, it was like Mental Health Wednesday or something. It was crazy. Right before they presented, there's like a new committee, government and community something and something, managed by state board member Hall, whose first words were something like social emotional learning needs to be at the forefront of everything we do. Before academics even, he said you have to do social emotional learning so that kids are mentally prepared to read. I mean, it's completely backwards. So then on this committee is Freebird, McKinney, and Julie Pittman. And Freebird presented, and he mentioned that ProjectAware was coming up. One of the slides was full of Castle SEL. He kind of glanced over that because I think they recognize a lot of parents.
Raising hell.
And then he mentioned ProjectAware as being hopefully a gold standard or something similar for statewide implementation of the mental health plan. So they're looking to implement this statewide. They want the federal funds. They want telehealth in school under the guise of, we're just reaching rural communities that don't have the access and being equitable, which, on the surface sounds great, but it's a direct line into the school without the parent being involved. And they can say, we'll inform the parents, or they have to have consent. Yeah, no. We haven't been seeing them being very receptive to parents these days.
So I want to explain exactly. So I want to explain to you exactly what we're talking about. This is how sensitive the instrument is. Okay, that they're measuring someone who needs an intervention. This is right from Castle SEL, right from the North Carolina DPI website. I bet you Fairfax, you're going to find it on yours. Other states, you're gonna find it on yours. Check this out. Use Castle 3 signature practices. Here's one. This one makes sense to us. Come in as a teacher. You set the table for learning. Hey guys, how was your weekend? What's up? What's up? How's it going? Are we going to have a good week today? How's the weather? Blah, blah, blah. I get it, right? Nothing objectionable. This starts to get scary. Number 2, make note of students who will not respond or who respond in ways that may cause concern. With them wearing a mask, what the hell does that mean? Anyway, follow up with students if there's a concern. Encourage students to sign up for one-on-one time via an online secure form. Follow up individually with students who cause concerns or who signed up for one-on-one. For students who have concerns, follow your school's procedure for referring to the appropriate support personnel like a counselor, school social worker, psychiatrist who will be on staff, et cetera, et cetera. So doesn't take much to trigger this. And again, it's all in the teacher's courts. Most teachers are great, but the ones that aren't can do one hell of a lot of damage.
I just don't understand where we have gone. And this is the frightening thing. Like the teachers are asking for less responsibility. Like they just want to be able to teach their classes. They just want to be able to teach the reason why they got into teaching. None of them got into teaching to be a counselor. None of them got into teaching to be a political pundit. None of them got into teaching for these reasons. They got into teaching, I would hope, because they love a subject or because they love children and want to see them, their minds open up to the possibilities of what they could be as they get older. So this is not serving anyone besides themselves, the people that are getting wealthier, because we need to also go back and remember. And somebody mentioned this in the things that you put up, the comments. This is all about the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
This is all about the more kids that you have that need telemedicine, that need to be drugged, the more money every school system is going to get. They are going to be promoting this, because just like the more kids you have on an IEP, the more kids that you have taking ADD medication, the more money that you get funded to your school. But here's the other thing. I'm calling a bluff on this for this reason. If you were so concerned about children's physical health, why do you not have nurses in schools? They have taken, they're sharing nurses between 2 and 3 and 4 schools. If you are so concerned that the children have somewhere to go if they're not feeling well, or if they want someone to talk to, why don't you have counselors? And why, if you are worried about their medical health, why have you taken away the only medically trained person that you had on your staff? Why are you putting this back onto the teachers who are already overloaded and who are not trained in this area? Why?
They're not. And I got to tell you, the good teachers, they don't want to do this crap.
Right.
It's abusive and they're not qualified. The teachers that do want to do it, be very, very scared. I'm showing you right now. This is the surveys that North Carolina and at least I think we're up to 12 districts are giving. What you're looking at is actually a psychological test, a psychiatric test, really, that you would take at a doctor's office in a closed, confined area. By the way, this is self-report, right? So, and with kids, it's subject to change. A 5th grader, I mean, even a teenager, I may be like, all the way on one end of the spectrum one day and literally the next day the other. And then you're going to have a diagnosis and be typed for the rest of your academic career. No, thank you. This is a snapshot in time. This is not appropriate to be given in schools. And again, this information is shared all over inside of the school with the state. This is the government checking up on you. Do you see this? This is exactly what a psychiatric survey looks like to qualify for medication. This is wrong. This is so wrong. This is inappropriate. What I'm showing you, get this. We have at least one parent, actually a couple, who the parents said, I don't want my kids taking the survey. They were forced to take the survey by school officials. Not appropriate.
Plus, this is the thing. Like, we live now in such a society that everyone is looking for the fast fix. Everybody's looking for the pill. And so if you are struggling with, being able to sit still in a chair, if you are being called out for behaviors that aren't proper, isn't it great that you now can go somewhere and get an excuse for why you're acting and get the pill, right? And to be told it's okay. You don't need to be responsible for yourself. And I feel like that is the other thing. Children are concrete thinkers. They're not able to look at a scale of, every day to one time a day at 5 and 6 years old, and to be able to tell you with any semblance of reality what really they are feeling. Why are we making everybody so frigging introspective that they're constantly thinking about how they feel about their gender, how they feel, what emotion am I feeling in this moment? Oh my gosh, wait a minute, guys, let's stop this conversation, because I really need to think about how I'm feeling right now. And I need to write it down, and I need to tell everybody about it.
That's another side of it. But the parental right thing, Rhonda, you're exactly right. It's like, Nancy, like, we're all moms. So if my child was upset in school, maybe over something that happened during that day at school in the morning,
right?
Why are they taking me out of the relationship,
right,
with my child? Because Rhonda, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, right? I agree. It's very disturbing, and it interrupts the parent-teacher communication, where you send an email saying, hey, my daughter and my son experienced this. They might be a little bit overwhelmed tomorrow or whatever. Please let me know what's happening. And then, but these, then what happens? The teacher has to give them a survey. Like it doesn't make any sense.
And the whole thing,
they can't handle academics as it is. And now all of a sudden they're going to handle mental health on top of that. And that's going to fix the academics. I don't think so.
Well, I think that they don't have any intention of fixing academics because
no, it's a ruse. I mean,
right,
that's what they're
right.
it's
But my
response.
thing is too, if you really look at it from a psychological perspective, if you are feeling anxious and depressed in these things, what better thing than to put your mind on something else, right? What better thing than to start having you have to focus on something at school, right? I mean, if there's issues outside, or if your friend is leaving, or if you're upset about something, you know, it is helpful for everybody to kind of get their mind off of it for a time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you definitely want to be, you know, compassionate to people, but at the same time, just wallowing in it and making the entire school day be about how people are feeling. Everybody's
Right.
going to be depressed, whether they want it or depressed or not.
Are you
Yeah, a
breathing?
lot of times
Are
it's
you
a
living
break.
in
It
this
should
world?
be a break. It should be a break for these kids from that.
Right.
They should be able to look forward. They should be able to think about how they can improve themselves academically, how they can challenge themselves, looking forward to soccer practice, looking forward to karate. It should be an innocent time for them.
Yes.
They shouldn't have to be forced to think about these things. And honestly, I mean, to tie this in, I mean, this is a little bit tangential, but to tie this in with the pornography findings that we're starting to find that originally came out of Fairfax, Virginia, I downloaded and read one of those books, Out of Darkness by Perez. It was the most graphic, anti-literature, anti-intellectual, graphic violence, rape, torture, masturbation, multiple things. There was like an explosion, which is the one historical event that happened. Descriptions of half the class in body parts and all of this stuff. And I read it as a physician, and I was just like, this made me suicidal. And these are the books of lived experiences, quote unquote. I mean, the author even referred to it as an imagined lived experience. This is the stuff that they're having in the libraries. And then they're turning around telling, oh, we're worried about their mental health. Well, how about you, before you insert mental health plans on everyone, how about you at least look or consider some of the books in the library? Why do kids have to be exposed to that? Why do they have access to that material? It's traumatic. There's no reason a child should be reading that stuff. There's so many other things to read, and it's really insane, the priorities here.
But it's really Dr. Seuss that's a threat.
Yeah.
Right. They
Yeah,
have to censor. They have to censor Indian in the Cupboard. You know, Orange County over the summer was listening to people saying Indian in the Cupboard was offensive, but they can have these books, Lawn Boy, Out of, you know, the stuff going on in the news lately. It's the priorities are insane. And the same people want to survey your kids.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff our lieutenant governor's talking about, they want to make it about LGBTQ. Look, we've got several gay parents in our coalition, and they do not like the filth that is in school. Why? Just as we wouldn't want heterosexual sex and depictions of that being made available, or bestiality for that matter, being available in a middle school library. I mean, this is common sense. And by the way, parents, don't you dare take the progressives' narratives on this, period. The conversation is about appropriateness. This doesn't belong in there. So I want to encourage all of you. We need a bunch of signatures on this survey. We do need to defund Panorama Survey. We need to sue them. We need to defund them. We need to bring them down. I mean, look, the buck stops somewhere. So I want everybody to start with the state. The state is really where, for us, a lion's share of the problems come from. How do I know? How did I prove it? I showed it to you. I showed you Castle SEL. I showed you the partnering. That came out, by the way, July 2020. So that's been going on well ahead of that. But I can guarantee you, we are partnering with Chan Zuckerberg, Gates Foundation, the NEA at the state level. That happened. That's happening. So you need to start from the state and work your way down. And we are going to hold people accountable through lawsuits if we can, through every way available. But I want everybody to definitely check out your district. Got to start at the state, Michelle. That's what we found out early on.
Yep. And, you know, I think it's shocking. I think everybody needs to know tonight, you know, when we were at the school board meeting out in Hillsborough, to sit back and to recognize that there are people out there screaming and calling names to the parents that are out there not wanting this graphic, violent sex to be in our schools. And you have people out there fighting for it. I mean, like saying that they're upset with you for wanting to stop it. And that's the thing that, like, that's what we need to understand, that that's what we are up against. We are up against these people who they're truly depraved, in the sense that anyone that would want anyone's child to be subjected to this is not a healthy person. And so it's one thing for them to think it in their homes, but to come out and to be yelling and to have signs about it and to be promoting it and to be fighting for it, that should be shocking. And you should know your children are in school with these people's children. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that
some of them are teachers.
Recognize. Yeah, it's not just at the same level. You have people that are just like you and I, that you might see them, you know, in a grocery store and have no idea that that's what they're promoting. And I think that that's the thing that is shocking, but at the same time, that's why we need to fight for all children, because even their children should not be subjected to that. And so I don't know how you get around that, but you're right. I mean, it's the state that has been responsible for providing all the trainings. They're the ones that are doing the, you know, paying the money for Panorama. They're the ones that are making the partnerships with the telemedicine. They're the ones that are data, selling the data to other entities to find out what's going on in our kids' minds, as well as in our homes and in our lives. That is happening at the state level. And when they tell us not to be at the school board meetings, that's why you need to show up at the school board meetings.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. And so, I really want to give you guys, first of all, an informational update. And so the update is that, hey, now that the gig's up. So we know that Panorama, some very, very important people have a lot to lose if Panorama loses, right? And we are trying to defund Panorama in state by state by state. North Carolina, Virginia, we're on it. We have a couple of exciting things coming up. We're working with Virginia on this and a couple other things. And I want everybody to join us in this campaign, defund Panorama. I think we should take this head on. I mean, look, they want to arrest us and have the FBI hunt us down because we're going after Panorama. Let's go all in. Let's bring it. This is a government spying program. I'm going to put the petition up. I would love it. 1,000 extra people to sign it tonight. So share it with, I always say 10 people, 25. I don't care if you don't like them, right? This child spying program, no one should have to subject their family to this. And again, I'm private school, Nancy, private school, homeschool, Michelle, but it is about the children. It's about massive human rights abuses with the government money, right? At the hands of your own government. None of us can allow this to happen. Panorama has to be taken down.
Yeah, it's about,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's about my future surgeon knowing what to do in a critical moment. It's about having another Sully Sullenberger who can know what to do in a critical moment and stay objective and learn how to think themselves out of situations. I don't care if the kid is Democrat, Republican, gay, black, trans, binary, pronoun this, pronoun that. I just want them to be smart and to have a future and to have options that aren't limited by communist bureaucrats. I mean, the fact that anyone at the NCDPI thinks they know anything about mental health policy and these surveys, I mean, just
they know about money.
Think how arrogant that is. I mean, it's a joke that these people, bureaucrats in the NCDPI, all of a sudden know about social emotional learning and have trained themselves and can survey these kids with these psychological problems and can tell parents to go sit and not to worry. I mean, the arrogance coming out of these people. And I don't want the future generation who's building this country, who's taking care of us, or, raising the next generation to have that type of arrogant ignorance. It's arrogant ignorance, and I hate it.
Which is the most dangerous kind.
Yeah.
But I would say this too. I think we need to also remember that let's think about where we were 10 years ago, okay? Before they had this epiphany that we need to focus on social and emotional. Are we better able to handle stress? Are we finding that young people are so much more ahead of the game in being able to handle conflict, in being able to solve difficult problems, and in being able to handle life? And I would say no across the board. Everyone is getting so much more unable to handle even somebody that thinks differently than them. I mean, this has become, it's like watching the kids, play the violent video games, and then we wonder why they're violent. Well, talking about nothing but emotion and stirring up all of this division and all of this false like identity by whatever your feelings are or whatever your sexual tendencies are, and that becomes the defining point of who you are as a person. That's not making us exactly what Nancy is describing, is better able to solve problems and to handle conflict and to get along with people who disagree with us and to move forward and to be the entrepreneurs and to have the ideas, right? And to be outward focused, to be looking to see how can we really give back to this community. That is not what this is about. This is about focus on me, focus on me, focus on me. And it's all about me. And that's what we're teaching our children. That's what children naturally are. You've got to pull them out of that, not feed it and fuel it, which is what this is doing.
Right. Well, Patty, I want to answer your question. Do you know the details about it? Is it Johnson County? 100%. I mean, Johnson County is a big part of it. There's a great writer there, Michelle Antoine, who's exposed a lot of this, and we're grateful for her work. She has reported on that. Michelle Antoine, I would check her out. But withholding 7.8. Yeah. I mean definitely check into that county. I believe SEL is a part of it. I'm not sure if Panorama, but we do need to follow that lead. So county commissioners, this is another in we have, guys. If you live in a fairly, I wouldn't even say conservative, because again, this isn't right or left. If you live in a sane, community, you need to go to the county commissioners and say, these surveys are being done, and you have to show them evidence and lay out the case. Tell them parental rights being violated, privacy being violated. This is manipulative. This is labeling. I have to tell you that if these surveys are trying to get gay students to come out, and getting a teen to come out before they're ready is disastrous. It is
They're trying to get gay students to transition.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to be gay. You don't need to transition into a different gender to do that. So that's true. They're pressuring that, but to pressure a kid into acknowledging that before they're ready can also cause disasters, not to mention the fact that there are privacy concerns over doing that. And kids are stupid. So if kids find out that a kid is gay before they're ready, lots of problems. So I have to tell you that the gay community really has a problem with this. The Black community really has a problem with this. The problem is with our minority communities, and even with most of white communities, they don't know about it. But I tell you what, instead of going to some of these school board meetings, I'm a big fan of taking that survey and just pick, while the school board is in session, 100 doors to knock on with you and your friends in a district that you would like for the school board to win, right? Let them know, because I guarantee you show them the survey, Michelle, people get it, whether they have kids or not. They get it. This is wrong.
Well, I think you make up a link and say, show the survey, and stand at the entrance to the school when everybody's waiting for an hour to pick up their kids.
Yep.
You probably have a lot of people signing that survey, signing that petition, and figuring out what's happening. They sit there, and we have a school in the front of our neighborhood. They're there 45 minutes to an hour before, pickup time, just sitting in their cars. And that might be a great time to let people know, just if you had a flyer or something and said, did you know that, this is what's happening in the schools? Do you want to know more about it? Here, go to this website, go to Adverse NC, or, please sign this petition if you don't want your children to be asked, private questions about you and your family.
Right. I mean, people get it when they see that. They get it. Another question: if school systems refuse to, yes, they must return 20% of their federal funding. That's correct. 20% of their particular funding or total federal funding. So here's how I understand this, Patty. So a school board will be presented with 20% of your total budget that you're getting from, it's through DPI to them. It must be used for SEL. You cannot have social emotional learning if you don't have the surveys. So you take the leg out, you can take them right up from underneath them if you cut the surveys. And that's what we're trying to do. Defund Panorama, the SEL, it becomes difficult. Now, there are a lot of other surveys they can do, a lot of them. But if you cut the surveys in general, and so all of our lawsuits need to be targeted towards surveys.
Yep.
That's what you got to do. Yep. Sue's great suggestion, walking the carpool line. I know that I sit for about, I don't know, a half hour sometimes. And yeah, and it might be uncomfortable and people might, not like it. But I kind of think that you're going to make more friends than you will enemies, and you'll get past that really quickly.
Yep.
Surveys are reprehensible. So look, we're being targeted. We know this. We're up against it specifically for Panorama. We've been targeted by doing it in our state. Now we know that we're really the head of the Hydra in North Carolina. So we know that a lot of people have a lot to lose. We're digging into some people that have a lot to lose. We're going to keep digging because it's worth it. We take out the surveys. We can kind of sideline the SEL.
Yeah. So the SEL, with that question about requiring to have surveys with the SEL funding, it's very confusing because so there's a mental health plan that the state school board says that every district has to have. They have to have this mental health plan, and it's kind of interwoven. Social emotional learning is kind of addressing a lot of that mental health. So they go find, social emotional learning is almost inseparable from a lot of these programs. And so, for example, ProjectAware, which has already been in 3 counties and is coming in 3 more, and then eventually, if they have their way statewide, has to survey. They have to survey everyone. They have to turn teachers into universal screeners. That's the whole point, to gather this data, the mental health data on what's going on in schools. And they'll couch it as like, well, we're trying to prevent suicide and do this and do that. So it sounds good, but it's actually very invasive. And if you look at the systems ProjectAware recommends, which is called the SHAPE system, they have surveys based in CRT framework, like along the lines of anti-racism. And then ProjectAware has to take this data in order to continue the grant and the funding. They have to give it to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the feds. It's a combination of North Carolina Department of Instruction and North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And it's a program coming down from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So for North Carolina and those interested to continue with the grant funding, which comes from federal through the state, they have to take that data and they report it back to the feds. So the feds automatically have that data. And ProjectAware isn't just in North Carolina. I mean, I can't remember which states, but it's also called Project Activate. It's the same thing. So if you're in another state, look for Project Activate. I think ProjectAware is like the North Carolina specific term for it. But Activate/Aware, and it's coming, and it's federally funded, and the data has to go back to the federal government, and you have to have the surveys, or else you won't get your grant.
So Warren, this is terrible to read, and I have to tell you that we can expect more of this because when you're given a diagnosis for a mental disorder, it is very emotional. I mean, it takes a lot of training to be able to diagnose and communicate that diagnosis. And now we have teachers just potentially floating that completely around. This is inappropriate. This is going to cause a lot of problems. So Kylie came in late. How are they getting around giving surveys to students without parental permission? I would love to address that. What the system is now is an opt-out. In other words, they're just going to blanketly assume if you don't turn in a permission slip or if you don't sign one in the beginning of the year, that your child has opted in. And so what we're finding is the school will put like a blanket, hey, send this permission slip on the website. Who goes to the website, right? Or it's put in a place that parents can easily miss it. So we're also advocating for is a mandatory opt-in. If you're going to ask questions like that, then you don't give that survey unless and until you've got, for that specific survey, a permission slip. Because, I mean, if the questions were, how are you doing in math? How are you doing? Fine. No. These questions are way out of bounds. So if you're going to do that, I guess we can't like forbid them from doing it, right? We're going to have a universal opt-in. And I think that's what we need to ask for.
I agree. I mean, I honestly think that might even be the place to start right now, the fight, because, you know, going at the surveys, like you say, just like they, excuse me, just like they did with CRT, where they basically change what the mnemonic means, you know, when they start getting finding themselves under fire for it. They're going to do the same thing with Panorama. They're just going to change it to be another name. But I do think that universally, it should have to be that parents, for every survey that goes out, they need to be given permission. And in other words, because right now, what people might not understand from what you said, they're assuming everybody has permission to take it, unless the parents have specifically filled out something and sent it in and found it on the website and said, no, I don't want them a part of it.
I'm very glad that you brought that up because let me just break it down for you. So here we have this dude, Freebird McKinney. Forget the name. Forget the name. This is a dude that works up at the State Board of Ed and works for the DPI. We have this via FOIA. All right. This is his email, and he's emailing everybody on the team, Jimmy Falconberry, Truitt. And he's like, can we change the statewide Panorama Survey pilot name to the statewide student teacher survey pilot and change to 3.3 million instead? This would guarantee the surveys be provided yearly, and we really need to take Panorama off because it's a company. If you don't think that there's collusion at the DPI with Panorama, you got another thing coming, as Judas Priest would say.
Well, they're already trying to hide it.
Yep.
And then they're trying to make it, it's funny how it's like, this is a student survey pilot, so we can do it yearly. You haven't even done the pilot. I mean, they don't even care about seeing the results of the pilot to see if this is not working or a waste of money or hurtful to kids. They just want to do it yearly from the get-go.
Well, and remember, that's because if you look at the way that the school budget works, once they get payment for something, they never get less money, right? Yeah. I mean, they purposely spend every one of those dollars so that they can ask for more. And that's what they're doing here. If you look at that, if you read that email, nothing about that is about education.
No.
When he's literally talking about over $12 million worth of stuff.
Patty,
nothing has to do with educating our children.
I'm going to ask Patty. I'm going to answer your question with what I know. So in 2016, Panorama surveys were being done. We're reading through school board minutes from back then, and leftist superintendents of different districts did not want this, including the Bladen superintendent, who is now Dr. Robert Taylor, second in command at DPI. He vehemently objected to Panorama surveys being done in 2016 because he didn't believe that students should be able to it was too much for students to answer questions about their teachers. And now you see what a difference 4 years makes. So to me, some of the clearest evidence is, why was it horrible then, but it's totally fine now? Seems to me it's money.
Why is it horrible to ask questions about your teacher, but not horrible to ask questions about your parents?
I'm just saying, that's the difference. I mean, this is a guy in DPI right next to Catherine Truitt. And I'll say this too, Patty. We are hearing about, again, parents saying, hey, I don't want my teacher to take it. Principal says, hey, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. And the kids are coerced into taking it. We're hearing about school boards being lied to. In other words, the school boards are saying, hey, schools don't do this question, this question, this question. Superintendent goes, cool, no problem. School boards are lied to, and these questions are being given anyway. So there is a lot of hanky-panky with respect to these Panorama surveys, so much so that we're curious, right? And we're willing to do what it takes to ask the questions, to find the documents, to get the answers to these questions. There's a lot of people who do not want us to know. Sue, state loophole. Right, exactly. So look, schools have already made themselves the arbiter of medication or of medicalizing, right? Medical decisions. And so what do you think, Michelle? Because I kind of think that first it's the mask, and then it's, well, we've diagnosed your kid with bipolar, and they can't come back to school unless and until they take these very high-powered antipsychotics, because they did it with a mask.
Right. Well, and you know, my fear from day one has been that they're going to say, sure, we'll take the mask off, and with one hand they're taking off the mask, the other one they're putting a shot in their arm. But you know, I mean, we've seen different school boards throughout the country that did not know that they were being videotaped, and basically laughing about the fact that, you know, if this student thinks that they want to change their gender and their parents are against it, well, you know what happens in school stays in school, kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Right. Yeah. And I think that the root of this is, what is our educational department for? I mean, like nothing that we have discussed in the last 55 minutes has been about our students learning anything that has to do with becoming productive members of society.
Like tonight, when the parent brought up learning and academics in the Orange County School Board meeting, she was kicked out.
Right.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
And the chair who kicked her out is one of those people who has posted videos of making fun of parents at school board meetings.
Right.
And special needs children as well.
She's going to be handing out surveys for dollars.
Yeah.
For your kids'
Right.
mental health.
So do you want someone like that in a position of authority to put out the litmus test for what needs medical treatment? Because that's where we are. That's where we are.
And the other thing is, I think that we need to be fighting, and we need to be talking to every one of our legislators, everybody that's up in DC, and we need to absolutely destroy the federal educational system. This needs to be at the state level. We can't be being manipulated by people outside of the state, and that's what's happening. They're being our state boards and our Department of Public Instruction, and these people are being manipulated through another entity, and
chosen by.
Exactly. And that's the problem, because we have flip-flopped. This is no longer about the rights of the individual here in the United States of America. This is about believing that the federal government, that we answer to them. And it's the absolute opposite. The federal government should be the lowest man on the totem pole.
Correct.
Literally, you go from the individual, then to the society, and then to the state, and then to the federal government. And we've got it completely flipped around.
Well, Lynn, this is true. I mean, under our law, right? It's true. According to our state law ushered in, again, June 2020, this medical program, this mental health program, there's qualified immunity for everyone involved.
And
on the task force that argued for that qualified immunity for this legislation was Stephen Walker.
Yeah.
Dan Forest's general counsel at the time argued to give the NCDPI and the school PSUs qualified immunity.
And so just so she understands, what that means is the laws on the books say that children can be medicated for any communicable disease. And now they're going to broaden that to be anything that's caused from an emergency or whatever, which is the whole thing with COVID. And there is no age limit. You might hear of other states, and we know that Duke Medical System has now said, 12-year-olds are old enough to determine whether or not who can see their medical records, even their parents. They have to give permission for that. And by the way, Duke has been, is in partner with the North Carolina school system to provide many of these telemedicine centers or the physicians or the psychologists or whatever that are going to be on the other side of the screen with these children. But people need to understand that at any point they can say that anything is an epidemic. They can say, because of COVID, now depression is an
white
epidemic.
supremacy.
Now,
Remember, white supremacy is an epidemic.
right. And gender confusion is an epidemic, right? Or just the fact that people are being their real desires are being suppressed. That's an epidemic. So we need to be able to give them, gender changing hormones, because this is an epidemic. Like, that's what they're going to do. I mean, the fact that you have everybody participating now in a medical experimentation, and the pharmaceutical companies has zero liability, zero, none. You have no recourses. You have no recourse. And that's what's happening in our schools. No recourse for the parents when this does happen. None.
It seems that in Raleigh, in the state of the realm, we pretty much got one man fighting for the parents and children. I mean, am I wrong?
No, I think it's ironic. I think it's weird that these, or not ironic. I just think it's telling that these pictures come out, that it comes out that they're in these school libraries, and you can search them and find them. And it's not the leader of the NCDPI or the leader of the State Board of Education that's coming out and saying, "Hey, we have a problem here. How can we help?"
They're too busy telling parents on September 28th that we're violent at school board meetings.
Yeah. How can we help our local PSUs, go through these books, or what do we need to do? Because this is outrageous. I mean, anyone who looks at the pictures it makes you sick. So even the lefties, and then they turn around and justify and say, well, it's not really in the schools. And it's like, no, you dummy, like, it's took this from the schools. But it's it's sad that.
Well, to your point, Nancy, I think it's true, because I think that we need to go to these people that were fighting against the anti-critical race theory, and they were fighting tooth and nail. I mean, many of our legislators got that passed. It was really only our governor that vetoed that. And so we need to remember that as well. Those people that are fighting for everything, but it's coming down so fast. I mean, it's like they're hitting us from every single direction. So I think that, there are things that we need to applaud, but we also need to make them, aware that we want them to speak out about it.
No, the legislators do. That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's fair.
I feel like the lieutenant governor has been more outspoken about these issues than our elected leaders in the NCDPI.
Yep.
Oh, and it's like, why is he the only one who?
Well, because he's not getting a financial kickback from this. I mean, quite frankly, follow the money.
You got it. And so I want to put this up right quick. If you think, and I know you guys don't think, but we love to show and not tell. So here we are. So if you think this is hyperbole about the mental health stuff, here is the medical provision of this. This is a survey that all the schools, not district schools, in North Carolina will be taken. They're being asked, to what extent did your schools use best practices for classroom to build healthy relationships and a sense of community? Healthy relationships, a sense of community, and address conflict and wrongdoing. Do you want to see anti-racist stuff? Critical race theory is going to be pumped through all schools, not through the curriculum now, but for mental health. Yes, I said it. They're using anti-racist critical race theory for mental health. In other words, this has absolutely nothing to do with mental health. This has everything to do, again, with critical race theory. And so
brainwashing.
It's insanity. So in other words, if you wonder how your kid is going to be, singled out, look no more, because you're looking at it right here. Let me see. This is Can
you go back to the first one that you had on there, the bottom thing underneath there, where under the often, because when it said best practices, there's a second paragraph in there that I think everybody needs to read through on the previous thing.
Okay, so I took this, by the way, just to let you know, and here's what happened. when I didn't score high enough for LGBTQ students, when I did not score high enough for the amount of students I sent to a medical mental health treatment, they recommended, get this, that I take or I administer the survey more often in order to get a higher response rate. Now we know this has nothing to do with mental health, and it has absolutely everything to do with coming up with more LGBTQ students, again, forcing the issue, right? And
like when it says here, it says here, use circles, groups, and other trauma-informed, healing-centered, culturally responsive processes to provide opportunities for students to share their feelings, build relationships, solve problems, and when there is wrongdoing, to play an active role in addressing the wrong and making things right. Why would we want our children to be trauma-informed?
This is group therapy, just so you guys know. This is an actual intervention. And again, I believe the minimum amount of training that you can do is 3 years to administer group therapy. And you're asking a teacher to do it, maybe with like a 3 or a 6 hour training at best.
And usually people that are doing this are adults. You don't do this in groups of elementary aged children or people that don't have their entire frontal lobe. Can we please remember, no adult has their entire frontal lobe, which is logic, which is your conscience, which is able to, think about the consequences of your actions until you're 25 years old. What are we doing? They don't have the intellectual and the emotional and the ability to even process this information.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be harming their ability to mature by dealing with these issues in a premature way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at it for yourself. This has absolutely nothing to do with mental health. It has everything to do with pumping this agenda. But again, we're adding medication here. Medication. So let me tell you, here's the steps. The Panorama Survey, once or twice a year, or 4 or 5 times if you don't, you meaning a PSU or a school, if you don't have enough LGBTQ or psychiatric patients. Okay, number 1. And then it goes to SEL. SEL is the curriculum. If the curriculum isn't enough to mold attitudes and beliefs to the government's liking, then there will be medication. We're here. I want to remind everybody that Jamie Falkenberry is the government affairs person, very high up in the DPI. It's basically Catherine's right-hand man. He is married to a lobbyist for these in-school psychiatric clinics. They're called East Point. Now, as Nancy said when we first started off, the DPI and actually the state has widened the trial for the medical clinic and has awarded East Point more clinics. In other words, if you think that Catherine Truitt and the DPI is going to put a stop to this program, you're dead wrong. They're making money off of this. This guy was Dan Forrest's educational attaché for years. He was with Dan Forrest for many years. And so, look, this is a problem. This is a problem. We've been talking about it for months, and yet he's still there. And so this smells very funny when you have people making money off of this in-school mental health clinic that's based off of critical race theory. This is someone not on our side and not on the side of children.
Yep.
So I guess that leaves us speechless. That's in it. But I have to tell you
that. Seamus, why are you asking about reading, writing, and math? Don't you know that's so outdated?
Kick him out, Sloan. Kick him off.
Seamus,
that's so outdated.
It's Seamus. You're from New York. You should know how to pronounce these Irish names. It's Seamus.
Seamus. Well, they should all be Seamus. Seamus themselves.
Seamus, you shouldn't be Seamus, but the people that we're talking about.
That's exactly right.
Guys, here's the crux of the matter. Anyone who's making a profit off of these programs, off the mental health clinics, again, mental health clinics are important. Not in our damn schools. Not in our schools, right? By the way, the mental health clinics do not exist in absence of the surveys.
That's right.
We've got to find everybody who's making a profit and we will, and we are. So we're going to close it out with that. We've had a day.
Yeah,
Nancy, you look plumb whooped.
well, I just, I don't know what to say.
Big Pharma, Suze. Yeah, you look toe up from the flow up. In fact, I think I'm going to move you into the level tier 3 because you are making me concerned.
Yeah, it's a really scary problem. I'm glad that there were several dozen people at the Orange County board.
We had a great showing.
I'm glad more people are waking up to the corruption that Hillary McKenzie is raining down in that community, which is really sad. Yeah. And she allows Antifa in the board meetings, but not regular parents who are seriously concerned and have specific academic concerns.
Seeing that all over the country.
Yeah. And it just, it's hard because I'm fortunate enough to be in a situation where I noticed what was going on with my kids and could take them out and could homeschool and could had the resources to find the appropriate place for them. And I'm still able to watch them every minute, every assignment of every day. And it's just, I hate that other parents can't necessarily do that and have to entrust their kids to these activist bureaucrat losers. I hate it. And
they're pariah. They're pariah
equity. I mean,
they're stealing our children's education, Michelle, to your point. They're emptying out. It's like cereal, right? It's like emptying out all the nutrients for feel-good crap. But I don't even know if it's feel-good crap. It's abuse in my summation.
Well, there's nothing that feels good about going to school and constantly having your brain picked to figure out what's wrong with you. I mean,
exactly.
When I went to school, I just loved to go and hang out with my friends and, have fun and to learn new things and, and to have a healthy competition to see who could do best in this or best in that. And we've completely taken that away.
Yes, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. And it's really sad because we're also not allowing our children to just have a childhood. We're discussing topics that, like we said before, are adult issues, and children should not have to be privy to them. They should just be able to have their naivety and the innocence of their childhood and enjoy that. And sadly, we're creating a toxic environment. We're creating a traumatic environment where there does not need to be one.
Right.
Yeah.
Where there should not be one, where it should be the opposite. And they relabel it as safe.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
It's absolutely traumatizing. So I'm going to leave you with this. The petition. How many people are you supposed to tell tonight? 25. I usually say 10, 25. Share this video, share the petition. We are here. We are at medicalizing children if they don't have the right contents of their mind. Again, they're wearing a mask. I don't know how you could possibly interpret very much about a child outwardly, right, from that. So we urge you to sign the petition. We'll be coming on again this week. We'll be coming on frequently. We're going to push this issue. Panorama, we've got to get it out.
And Thursday night, I wanted to tell you guys, Thursday night, we're hoping to do a Zoom with people who do want to look at potentially doing a nonprofit co-op in their area. We have somebody that's done that for 12 years and knows what is required of that. And so just to be legal and to be sure that we're doing everything on the up and up. If you're going to do it, within a school or within a business, there are certain things that you need to know. And so if you guys know anybody that would be interested in doing that and giving an option especially for those students who's maybe are a part of a single parent home, and how can we help them and to help their family to be successful and to not be, pushed to this. I think that's another option. If we could get one, at least in every county, if we could have 100 people that would kind of get teams together to start this, because it's going to be serving the teachers as well as the students, because the goal is to basically have somewhere where you could have maybe 13 classrooms and get a teacher for every classroom, kindergarten through 12th grade, and potentially pay that teacher, a few $1,000s a month so that they can leave the school system and still be teaching and have a safe place for kids. So I'll have more information with that. And Sloan, I'll share that with you if you guys want to keep an eye out on Telegram. And if we
look
can
at it on social media, we're going to put it all over social media. Tell me, because I can tell you I know my people, they're going to be bugging us. They're going to be bugging us. Here's a petition. So here's a petition right here. Copy and paste. Go to our website, edfirstnc.org, edfirstnc.org, and you're going to see it. I think it's on the campaign tab, but it's the first one up. Stop spying on our children. We said it back then in May. We're saying it now. Not only are we saying it now, we're not the only ones saying it now. Look back at our show on June 1st.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were here. We were saying this is child spying, etc. Now we have the whole country saying this.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's true and it's happening. So people all over the country are saying this. It's true. And by the way, we are unifying with national partners. I mean, all over the country. We've been, Nicole Solis, we talked to last night, and many, many others. I'll be on tomorrow. I've got to show you guys my schedule. I mean, we're going to hit meetings. I'll be in DC the week after next. So, we're getting this word out. And then we want you to also get the word out. We want you to speak at your school board. We want you to speak up at your wherever. Go to clubs, get invited to clubs, inform them. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great evening.